Reddit, what's the most ultimate petty revenge you've seen or been a part of? Crossing at a busy downtown intersection. A very impatient driver waiting to make a turn honked at a lady pushing a stroller. She had the right of way. I slowed down. But the guy next to me straight up stopped in front of the car. Then bent down to retie his shoelaces. My dad had an old truck parked on the back of our property that some kept stealing small parts from. Cap. Rotor. Points. etc. He wired it to an electric fence power supply. One evening we heard a bunch of yelling and swearing and went back there and the guy left us some free tools. I was dating this girl. Thought she was the one. So I gave her the keys to my apartment. I worked late for my job. I was just happy there was someone in my bed. When I got home at 2 in the morning. Came home one night. And she was awake. She confessed to using my apartment to cheat on me with 7 different people. So I packed her stuff up. She was still living with her mom anyways. So I lied to her. And said I moved to Seattle. I moved to Hawaii instead. 3 months after being in Hawaii I get a phone call from her. I answer. And to my surprise she's called me from the Seattle airport. She flew out there to try and fix things between us. The dialogue goes as follows. Me. So you're in Seattle? Huh? Yeah. Weren't you listening? I came here to fix us. Me. Oh. Well that's bad. Huh? What's bad? Me. I'm in Hawaii. Then hung up the phone. Phone rings, I answer. Huh? You lied to me. Me. Huh. How does it feel? I hang up again. I don't know if that's petty. But to me it was a good revenge. My mom and dad. This happened when I was in my late 20s. My mom and I were in the car. My dad called and they started bickering with each other. My mom got irritated. And hung up on him. He called her right back. And when she answered he hung up on her. Didn't even say a word, just waited for her to pick and hung up. It was so petty and hilarious to see my parents acting like children. I couldn't stop laughing. They've been married over 35 years. I still get tickled when I think about that. I saw an ad for a work from home type job. It didn't sound scammy and sounded sort of legit. So I asked for more info from the website. Enter your email thing. It was crap. And was sending me spam several times a day. For whatever reason blocking it didn't work. I got annoyed one day and answered back. Stop spamming me. The guy actually answered. He actually monitors that address. He told me to unsubscribe. Which did nothing. After about another week of it, I came up with an idea. I took his email address he answered from and added it to his own list. Then signed it up for any other spam I could find. A few days later it stopped spamming me. Delivered pizzas about a week for my best friend's shop. Warned me about a few customers. But one in particular was always rude to the drivers and never tipped. Lucky for me. I got to deliver his order of a single calzone. Maybe $6 or $7 total. And he tried to pay with a $50 bill. All the menus and the website prominently said nothing over a $20 bill for deliveries. And he'd been their customer long enough to know that. But when I told him this while explaining how I didn't have enough change, he got extremely rude and was loud about how it's not his fault and that drivers should always carry enough money on them. So I did what any person in that situation should do. And told him not to worry about it. And I'd pay for the order. For those few seconds he thought he'd won a free calzone by being a dick until I pulled it out and started eating it as I walked back to my car. Of course he MF'd me the whole time I was walking. But damn if that wasn't the best tasting calzone ever. Sharing a holiday home with some friends and their 10-year-old son started to be a pain. Not helping around the house and crying if he didn't get his way. His parents decided to just let him sit and watch YouTube on his iPad instead of disciplining him. So I logged into the internet router and would use admin privileges to suspend his device from accessing the internet. As soon as he got up to ask his dad for help I would reactivate the device so it seemed as if nothing was wrong. I did this every day for 2 weeks. I mailed my TTYX best friend an envelope double stuffed with glitter and a note saying I know what you did. I wasn't referring to anything in particular. But she lies about practically everything, so it was enough to mess with her for a while. Me and a few workmates were at an Italian restaurant for a leaving party. When I had to go toilet, came back and carried on eating my pizza. Turns out one of my colleagues poured the chili oil all over my pizza and that tea set my mouth on fire. Plus I'm not a big fan of heat anyways. So I basically had to write off a slice of pizza. Anyways, the guy that did it found it hilarious. And since he covered his food in the same oil, I figured he'd have oily fingers from the bottle. Being the youngest brother, I would only get hand-me-downs. My older brother rubbed it in my face that he got a brand new pair of PF Flyers after Sandlot came out. Every day, I would stuff the toe of the shoes with tissue paper, adding a little more each day till he thought he outgrew them. Got slightly worn. PF Flyers. After about a month. My roommate and her soul loved doing elaborate jigsaw puzzles. After I found out she cancelled our lease, leaving me 1 week to find a new place to live, I threw away one piece of 2 different puzzles they were working on. Before you ask, she was able to do this because I was 17 and not able to legally sign a lease. Edit. I'm a she. Dad was on a boat. Mom was. IDK where that crazy girl was at. Everything turned out cool. I'm married and am a mom to an awesome little girl. I don't know why the adults in my life let things go down like that. Maybe cause we live in a certain southern state that rhymes with Alabama. Edit. Late and not as sophisticated as most. But I started in a new job 2 years ago and hated a guy that kept joking about me. So I got his phone number and announced his PS4 for sale for like $50. Same day during lunch he was already nuts because of the calls. OFC he found a way to remove it. I used to deliver pizza for Domino's. It was my last shift and there was this house that was always rude. I called to ask what the house looked like and they said I gave you the address and hung up. Never tipped. Etc. I got to their house and they gave me a check for 1 cent less than what the total was. I said I am going to need the extra penny. They grumbled off and took their time hoping I would give up, but I just sat there holding the pizza. They finally came back all pissed off and gave me the penny. Note that they had no intention of tipping. They gave me the penny and I chucked it out into the street and left. They saw me do it. It was satisfying. During my freshman year of high school I was in a biology class that was made up of mainly juniors. This one guy, who sat next to me, would always be a jerk to me during class. I always did well on the tests so he would always look over and copy the answers from my Scantron. I'm pretty sure he didn't realize that I knew he was cheating off of me. Well, one day I got fed up with this guy messing with me and cheating off of me. So the next test comes around and sure enough he starts copying my answers. I finish the test and so does he. He gets up and turns his test in and comes back to his seat. I looked him in the eyes and proceeded to erase my entire Scantron. I then retook the test. This time marking the correct answers. The look of panic in his eyes was so satisfying. He ended up making a 2% on that test and never cheated off me again. In grade school, I kept a bag of chips in the same pocket every day of my backpack. This kid I knew would punch that pocket any chance he could for 5 days in a row. One day I replaced the chips with a bag of sewing pins. He never did it again. Sweet sweet justice. You younguns here might not believe it, but back in the early 90s, supermarket cashiers had to type every price in by hand. I was at Yvonne's in San Diego, walking toward the only open check stand with a single bottle of soda in my hand. Suddenly this hoity-toity lady with a cart stacked to the top flew out of one of the aisles like a freight train and cut me off. "I'm in a hurry," she said, then looked away like she was annoyed that I'd been born. I looked at the cashier. He rolled his eyes and got to work. 5 minutes later she's walking out the door and it's my turn. "You're good," says the cashier. I put your soda on her tag. Double quote. Damn. That felt good. I worked at a 50k plus tech company. I worked with a PM, Maggie, who misread my email and got her dates messed up. She scheduled a meeting for Thursday instead of Friday. When I told her she scheduled on the wrong day, she got mad at me and emailed all my managers up to my vice president, 4 levels of management, to say how much of a troublemaker I was. It was her own fault for not being able to read. 2 years later, I have to work with her again. And I pretend like I'm all happy and friends with her. 2 years after that, I quit and move on to a better company. I get an email saying that Maggie is applying to my new company and said I could provide a positive reference for her. I email the recruiter and blast all my 6 years of shit on her and block her from getting hired. Take that, Maggie. You F-ker. I never forget. When me and my ex-fiance were having a bunch of arguments after we broke up, I got tired of her constantly texting me about nonsense, so I called insert phone carrier to have them cut off service to her phone that I paid for in the middle of an argument. A girl on my softball team bullied me and spread rumors about me to the team and coaches. We were competing for the same position. She was in my geometry class and tried to buddy up to me because I was good at geometry. And she wasn't. So for a while I let her copy my homework. Then one day I gave her all the wrong answers and turned in the right answers for myself. A horrible former co-worker always claimed she worked way more hours than she actually did. And when she was at work she just browsed Facebook all day. The doctor owner was very hands-off and just let her do whatever she wanted, despite me going to him with proof. So Irene decided to take revenge. She was not computer savvy at all. So I removed Internet Explorer from her desktop and installed an identical icon that, when clicked, would instantly restart the computer. It was so satisfying when she would forget and click it, losing anything that she was working on. She would always grumble and complain about the virus on her computer. Irene started a new job about 3 weeks later. And when Irene left it was still giving her problems. I set a 10-minute song as the closing sound of a friend's computer, so it wouldn't shut down until the song finished. My sister said some pretty mean things to me in front of my friends when I was younger. So I put a slice of bologna in her Walkman CD player. I got the idea from Corey in the show That's So Raven. When I was in 7th grade, the startup my dad was a part of was failing miserably in no small part due to a crazy CEO. While at his house, my dad observed the CEO's toddler daughter picking up a piece of dog shit and licking it. He picked her up and told her to give her dad a kiss. I used to work shifts many years ago, including regular night shifts. My boss was an unpleasant person to say the least. He would leave his keys on top of his locker. One night I took a small file to work and filed down 1 or 2 teeth of his front door key. The next day he was telling everyone of how he got home and his door lock was broken and he had to get a locksmith out, which cost a fortune, and he didn't get much sleep. Happened again a couple of months later. Then his car key got some treatment. I stopped after that as I heard him mention it was getting suspicious that all these locks stopped working. But, unknown to me, other colleagues also disliked him. One night his locker disappeared entirely. Rumor has it that it's part of the foundations of an office block in London now. College 2-story apartment. One girl above us was a smoker and had no ashtray. Instead, she just let her cigarette butts fall between the cracks in the wooden platform down to our level. Usually right on our doormat. I started picking them up and putting them on her doormat. Bitch had the nerve to gripe about me doing that. I told her I wouldn't do it if I didn't find them on my damn doormat. She stopped. And then she started again. My roommate dated her roommate and I learned this girl had herpes. So the smoker started receiving a shit ton of Voltrex brochures and other free literature. This was my best revenge. I went through an awful divorce. My ex-wife cheated on me, told lies about me, and all throughout the divorce I took the high road and was there for my kids while she disappeared off the face of the earth. Her birthday was only a couple of weeks after the divorce was final. As the kids were young, I was a good guy and purchased several presents from the kids to her. Among the gifts, I bought a necklace with a big red A at the end. Her first name is Anne. I had the kids give that to her and she wore her scarlet letter all around town. Most people in our town knew what she had done and some even were aware of the necklace. Yup. When I was a kid, I attempted to call my aunt. For whatever reason, I accidentally dialed a 6 instead of a 3 and this man cursed me out for being a telemarketer. I was so stunned I didn't even hang up initially. Early in a game of Civ, Alexander stole Petra from me at the last second. So I built a special city in the frozen wastes. Blocked it in with my own cities. Gifted it to him. Then burned the rest of his empire to the ground. It took about 5 hours. I like to think he learned his lesson. But that forward settling FCK still looks as smug as ever. My wife used to keep these little Godiva chocolates that she likes in her desk at work. But started noticing some of them missing and figured it must be someone from the overnight cleaning staff taking them. Fed up with losing her not inexpensive treats, she decided to get revenge on the choco thief in question by replacing the good chocolate with little squares of chocolate laxatives that look just like real candies. The next morning she saw several of the laxatives gone. And then from that day forward, she was never missing another one of her good chocolates ever again. My sister and I once applied for a summer job. I was in charge dropping the applications off to the company one day. I got there after a 40-minute commute. It was closed, so I just drove back home. My sister was mad at me for not dropping them off regardless of the circumstances. She told me she was going to go there herself and drop her application and not mine. Since I didn't do it right the first time, my parents found out about this and made her drive a second trip to drop off my application as well, since she was being petty and wouldn't take it the first time. My uncle took revenge on the FedEx guy that regularly picks up deliveries from his stoneworking business. He produces things like headstones, address stones, name brick, etc. Single order address stone are about 18x 4-inch blocks of limestone. Usually we individually box stones, load them onto a pallet, and bring it to the back of the FedEx truck with a forklift. The delivery man just slides the boxes into his truck. One day, FedEx showed up early and grumpy, and took off in a bit of a fit before we could finish boxing all of the stones. He missed delivery dates and my uncle was pissed about it. Before FedEx showed up the next day, always the same guy, my uncle flipped open whatever a forklift's equivalent its hood is, and told us to act like the lift was broken. He also told us not to help the delivery man load boxes. I can't remember how many boxed stones the guy had to deal with, but I know that by the time he was done lugging stones across the warehouse and into his truck, he was out of breath and drenched in sweat. The poo hat. Found a hat in the car that I share with my ex. That belonged to the girl, also ex-friend of mine, that he had been banging for the last 2 years of our marriage. I dipped a Q-tip in my dog's freshly laid poo and delicately lined the inside rim of her hat with it, then gently placed hat on back seat of car where I found it. Returned car to ex the following day. Next time I borrowed the car, the poo hat was not there. My roommate in college had only child syndrome and taped a piece of paper over her clock because she didn't want to share it with me. Never mind that she couldn't see the clock herself, but she would rather no one see the clock than share the clock with my eyes. So, from then on, I would steal one sock from a set once a week. It was slow enough that she didn't realize it was me sabotaging her socks, but fast enough for her to be really annoyed and wondering what the hell was happening to all of her matching socks.